Hello, and welcome to the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning, your host, and also the president and co founder of Let Them Live. We bring you interviews with unsung heroes and inspiring individuals who are in the fight to save babies, mothers, and fathers from abortion. Our goal is to amplify their voices and bring their stories to the forefront, shedding light on the incredible work they do and the lives they touch. This is more than just a podcast. It's a platform that allows everyone to share their pro-life stories and inspire us to passionately continue advocating for life. All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I'm Emily Burning. I'm the president and co-founder of Let Them Live, and I'm really excited to be doing this podcast because it shows the inner workings of Let Them Live and the importance of what we do. And we've talked to pregnancy counselors and supporters, and I'm really excited today for our next guest because she is the epitome of a Let Them Live cheerleader and fan and has come alongside us so many times to ensure that women have the support they need. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining me.
Hi. Thank you, Emily.
Yes. Why don't you
Thank you.
tell everyone a little bit about yourself and we can talk about how you found Let Them Live too.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My story, my life has been impacted by abortion 44 years ago. That has fueled my passion for mothers and babies through my life. I have found healing along the journey, and that has prepared me for the work that God has asked me to do, that I am willing to do, and that is sharing truth, being vulnerable, and sharing the darkest pieces of my life in hopes of helping others and saving every baby that we can and every mother from abortion.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And I know you have a personal story as well that I would love to have you share in it. I've heard it so many times, but every time I hear you talk about it, it just hits me in a different way and it's so impactful. And I know that's what like leads your whole pro-life mission in life. So, can you
Mhm.
share a little bit about your personal journey and what kind of led you into this?
My personal journey, it really began. My pro life stance started long before I realized what pro life or pro choice meant. My life started June 14th, or I should say, my life changed June 14th, 1979. I was 16 by 2 days, and I was taken to an abortion clinic. My parents, that was the only option they had for me, and my boyfriend's parents as well. And abortion was it. I truly did not know what abortion meant. I came from a large family, and all I know is I had so many aunts, and they were always pregnant. And so I knew when someone was pregnant, there was a baby coming along. And so for me, I truly believed I was going to be a mother, though I was young. However, that changed. And June 14th, my life changed forever. And my baby's life ended forever. And so from there, a few months later, my sister had her first baby, and I was still trying to figure out what happened to me. I knew that day I was different. I left that clinic that day different, but I still couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what abortion meant. We didn't have Google, we didn't have internet, we didn't have the access that we young people have today. So I was lost. But 6 weeks, my niece was 6 weeks old, and I sat in my room holding this baby as I was asked to babysit that day. And that's where it all really came to life for me. I held and studied this little baby. I can feel it like it was yesterday. And I just studied her little body, and I asked myself, what happened to my baby? I should be pregnant right now. What happened that day? And for the first time, my mind went back and started to replay that room and what happened. And I felt the nurse pushing on me, holding me down, telling me everything was going to be fine. It wasn't going to take very long. It won't hurt very much. And none of that was true, except that it didn't take very long. It doesn't take very long to end a life. But I heard the machine turn on. I felt that pressure and that suction of what I call a death machine. And as I said, like I had no idea what abortion looked like. But that moment, it became very real to me what abortion looked like. My baby was sucked out of my body and broken into pieces and discarded like trash. And that was a real big moment for me. And that is when my life started to become very dark. And the self abuse started, the alcohol for years, eating disorders, excessive, obsessive exercise. The girl I saw in the mirror was no longer me. I saw a baby killer for 25 years. And when that was before I knew what pro-life or pro-choice even meant. But from that moment, and even though in the next 10 to 15 years, though I still didn't know what that whole movement was, I know today, even if that had never happened to me, I would still be pro-life because I do believe that every life is valuable. But what it has done in my life is fueled a passion to help every woman, every baby to choose life, to give them that opportunity. And that's why I love Let Them Live. We walk beside that mom and we give her every opportunity to support her when she isn't getting support from family. And I know exactly what that means.
Yeah. And something I love, Sue, is you always talk about Let Them Live, not as like separate from you. Oh, you guys do this, you guys do that. But you always say we. And that's something I really love because that just shows what I want our donors to feel. I want it to feel like a we, because it really is all of us doing something and in different ways and in different, God gives us different talents, different abilities, but we're all bringing it together for them.
Right.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
saving generations. That's
Saving.
when I think of Let Them Live, I think of saving generations. It is so much bigger than each of us. It isn't just one mom, it isn't one baby, it is generations of family members. And it's very impactful. I love Let Them Live. We talked about why do I support Let Them Live or what brought me to you. I mean, I knew my daughter was going to be graduating in a year, and I knew God was calling me to bigger platforms. I knew that sidewalk counseling and pregnancy centers were what I had been doing for many years. And I knew there was more. And so I knew when she went to college, what does my future look like as I weep as she leaves me? But I'd always volunteered and I started researching organizations, pro-life organizations, and looking for something that I had not heard of yet. And maybe where's my place? And that's when I came across your story, yours and Nathan's story at 2 a.m. And I sat and just wept because here's a couple who was not impacted by abortion, yet their hearts were so strong and passionate to save babies and save mothers from that choice. Think about young couples. We all know young couples don't have a lot. And as I read your story, you and Nathan, you had little, yet you were willing to sacrifice every dime, like it just everything you had so that one mother could choose life and that baby could take its breath. And I thought, this is where I want to be. This is walking alongside mothers and doing that work. And that just touched me. And again, I feel together, if one couple can do that for one mother, imagine together what all of us can do,
Yes, and
and
that's everybody. Look what we can do together, and if a couple, just random people from Indiana can what we could do with even more resources. We were
yes,
scraping pennies together,
yes,
so
yes, yes,
oh my
amen,
gosh, I love that. That's
amen.
amazing. So we were talking about generations, and I just had to point out what's behind you. This is
Mm.
pretty much just like our house. We've got all these pictures of Let Them Live babies, and I don't know how many you have on
Yes,
your wall, but it's a whole bunch, and I know you've got more to hang
it
up.
is, and I have more waiting to go up.
More waiting to go up, and
It
definitely
is
more that are going to be coming your way. But those just seeing all, and this isn't even all the babies. This is just like a drop in the
right.
bucket of how many
Over
lives Let Them Live.
six,
Yeah.
yes, over
Wow.
600 lives. And as we look at our journeys in life, and I hope I'm not getting off track, but you had one of a pivotal moment for me to bring me to where I am today. And I think it's important because anyone who is listening, who may be they may still be in that painful moment and place where they haven't had healing. And I could never do what I'm doing and have done years of sidewalk counseling and pregnancy centers. I couldn't have gotten there without the proper healing and help. And it was 23 years before I had sought out counseling or any help. I'd never done therapy. It was such a dark secret of mine. I wanted no one to know. And so I became a Christian at the age of 33. My brother had passed away, and truly I felt like there was no way I could go on. I was already so depressed from my own life. And then losing my brother was so devastating. And so I found myself walking into a church one morning and felt literally God. I wasn't like, I wasn't raised in a Christian family. All the things that had happened in my life, I really didn't think, I didn't believe in God. I just thought
Mm.
there's no way there's a God if all this has happened to me and my everything to my family. And so I walked into this church and I thought, there is a God, you're going to save me or it's over. And I went into church that day. And this little piece is very interesting because when you don't believe and God shows up, you're pretty much blown away. And so a client of mine went to this church. And so I walked in, I didn't go in until everybody left. And it was 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. And so I went and I sat all the way in the back, and the pastor was sharing the microphone with anyone who wanted to share what they were grateful for. And this young lady that was a client of mine was taking the microphone. She had no idea I was there. And she started talking about or thanking God for Sue Moon, who was my maiden name, he had put in her life to help her get back to her strength after a difficult injury where she could now hold her baby. And I'm paralyzing back in I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. How does she know I'm here? There's no way she knows I'm here. And it was actually a really freaky moment for me because I didn't know God in that way. But it showed me time months later as I got to become a Christian and got to know how God operates. I'm like, oh, he knew everything that day. And it was that day that I started to go to church. I stayed at that church for 3 years, and then I felt a very strong pull to go to a new church. I did not want to go to this church. It was a big mega church. I cried every week in church. I didn't want to move. I was comfortable, and that was the problem. But God, I finally was obedient. I went to this new church, and again, I know exactly why. A few weeks after being there, the director of the pregnancy center got up to speak. Even though I was very taken back by this, and I even sent the church a letter because I thought every person, they should warn people about these situations. But this lady got up and started talking about a post abortion class. I was paralyzed. I was hyperventilating. I did not expect this. And I couldn't get up because I felt everybody would know that I carry this sin. I just felt so shameful. It was awful. But after that week, and I kept thinking about it, praying about it, I was actually mad. God, why did you do that? That was the most horrific moment. And so I ended up going to the pregnancy center, speaking with the lady, and that was a very pivotal time point in my life. It was the starting point of me getting healing, of me learning how to help myself and get to a healthier place. I wanted to be healthy. And with that, it was a baby step process. And if you want to heal, it truly does take effort. You have to want to heal, and you have to be willing to talk about the really tough stuff. And it doesn't happen overnight. And I believe that God brings you to a place of healing, a level of healing to where you can do what you're passionate about. And he may take you in other journeys, but for me, it is truly a passion to help this pro-life movement, to help mothers and babies. But I would never have been able to do that without it. I remember the very first time I was on a sidewalk and I shared my story with a mom for the very first time. It was so traumatic. That first time and a lot of times, but that very first time I was scared. I just asked this mom if I could have 5 minutes of her time, and we spoke, and I cried and just shared how you will never, ever forget this. Abortion will never leave your conscience. Your heart will be impacted forever. And it was the start of that that continued to allow me to heal. Because when you can feel like your story, my precious child, Amanda Ray is her name, she is helping others live. And so to me, it's always healing when I see a baby live. And I'm just a small piece of God's plan in this. And I get to walk alongside, let them live, and we get to do God's work together.
Yeah, I think that's all just so beautifully said, and the healing and knowing that there is forgiveness. And I think it's beautiful what fuels you for this movement. And
Mhm.
I know that God takes terrible things and turns it into beauty, and to know that you're using your
Yes.
life to not only share your story, but to save lives by sharing your story and supporting
Yeah.
us. That's just a huge blessing. And your
Mhm.
story, I wanted to talk about this, but you're writing a book
Yeah.
and I would love to hear more about it. I,
Mhm.
read one of your chapters
Mhm.
this morning and it just hit me to the core,
Mhm.
and just hearing how much pain you went through before you experienced healing, and to hear how long you were dealing with that pain before you got healing and got to start to come out of that. It's amazing that you're writing this experience because so many women need to hear it. So yeah, talk about your book a
Mhm.
little bit.
Sometimes, some days it seems surreal that this is happening. And as I read a chapter, when it comes back to me, I weep. And then I realize at some points, several times I've read, I'll read it and I actually get lost in the book as I'm reading. But then at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is my life. It was 44 years ago, but yet it wasn't, because it still goes on every day. This is a piece of my life that will never leave me. And it isn't easy. And I've told you this before, Emily, it never gets easy being so vulnerable, putting your worst, ugliest, most evil sin out there. It isn't easy. And there's so much judgment out there. And I'm doing this to save lives. And my book is, I hope and pray that it will impact readers to, it may be a grandmother, it may be a mother, that it changes their mind. We have a lot of young women who do not go to their parents. And one of my biggest messages I like to say to parents is, make sure your children know they can come to you with their darkest secret, that you will never be disappointed, that you are there to help them and love them through. Because especially Christian young girls, they don't want to disappoint their family. And some parents, some kids know their parents are pro abortion or whatever. And my story, I pray, as difficult as it is to put on paper, it was real. That pain was real. Those years of pain was real. And it's difficult talking about what it did to my family. My abortion broke up my family. And that is another heavy burden that I have carried my whole life. And it ruined my family. My poor brothers were cheated out of their mom and dad being together because of what it did to my family. Some people say, Sue, it wasn't, that wasn't your fault. I have to own a piece of that. It created conflict between my parents, and before you know it, my mom left. And that is a difficult piece of my book. My mother has never discussed my abortion with me ever. After my abortion, that door was closed and it was never talked about.
Wow.
And that is another message to parents, that you can't hide this. It is so mentally, emotionally damaging to not just your child, whether it's your son who went through it, but it will hit your family. And no one escapes. It's the shock waves of abortion. We've heard that term before, and it truly is. So I pray that my story, it's going a little slower than anticipated due to my own life with my husband's situation. It's slowed down some, but chapters are being worked on. I'm getting proofreads, and I hope to see it finished in the next 9 months. And I pray every day for the writers who are working on this, and they are just deeply passionate about abortion and saving babies. So they are really, really into this book. And as I shared that chapter with you yesterday, that was really hard to read. And I pray that young girls, I would hope that I could take my book. How hard is it going to be to get in schools in the near future? Probably pretty hard, but I feel like I can find a way. I will find a way
If
to reach
anyone,
I will find a way. And I want to give this book to as many young girls and mothers and boys. Everyone needs to know the reality of abortion. And I was listening to a podcast this morning, and it was actually on men after abortion. And men shouldn't be left out of this because they are greatly affected. And my boyfriend, the father of my child, he was greatly affected by abortion. And men get left out of the healing part of this, and they shouldn't, because it affects everyone. And men carry this for years. I think a lot more women seek counseling than men. If there's any men out there hearing this and you are one of them, I strongly encourage you to seek counseling, find that healing, and don't live in shame. This is real. It's happened. We are forgiven when we ask God's forgiveness. And it takes longer for us to forgive ourselves than for God to forgive us. I definitely learned that. But I pray that God will use this book. This is strictly that this is for God's glory and all that he has done in my life to bring me to where I am today. There's one piece of my life that I love to share because it truly it shows God and how amazing he is and how much he loves us. And I've shared this with you before, and I shared at the One Life Ball, the last session of the post-abortion class, we have a memorial service for our lost children, and we have named them through this program. And then we have a memorial service. And before going into that memorial service, I sat in my car and I just prayed. I thanked God for bringing me to that class so that I could get the tools that I needed to move forward in healing so that I could be emotionally healthy. I was 38, almost 39 years old. I did not have children. I never thought I would have children. I was told I couldn't have children. And I always felt that was my punishment. And that night I asked God for one thing, and it was that he would give me a second chance at being a mother. And little did I know, he had already answered that prayer. I found out I was pregnant about 6 weeks later. And I still, to this day, when I see my daughter, I am so grateful that he trusted me, that he loved me that much, that he showed me in that way that I was forgiven. And my daughter, she's soon to be 21 next week, and she has blessed our lives beyond measure. And she has also given me abusive healing as well through this whole journey. And so I would just like to share that God is bigger than we could ever imagine, loves us more than we could ever imagine. And he wants us to be healthy, and he wants us to be happy so that we can go on and live productive lives and do
great work. Exactly. Use our stories, use our pains, use everything to then put it into action. Wow. So every time I hear your story, Sue, just gets me because what a blessing. I have no
Thank
words.
you.
I just am so grateful you shared it. And I know that I'm going to be so excited to read your whole book, and we're going to definitely support it like on Let Them Live. So whenever it is out, we're going to be proudly supporting it because I do believe
Thank
that
you.
everyone needs to read from your perspective and from the perspective of women
Mhm.
who had abortions, what it really was like, because that's just not
Yes.
information that women are getting.
Exactly. I agree. And women deserve so much better. And as we move forward, I look at Let Them Live. And when we had your first gathering at your home 2 years ago, and then this year, as we had it at the Hard Rock Cafe, and when I stood at the podium looking out, my heart was just overflowing with joy and gratefulness because You have grown. Let Them Live has grown. People are seeing what we're doing as an organization, as a team, and the passion and compassion that is in that room was just a beautiful sight. And
It was
I see
never
Them
cried
Live.
so much in my life.
Oh my, I know. I was so happy. I was like, Lord, please help me hold it together. Please help me hold it together. And He did. And so I see great things for Let Them Live. I see in our future a maternity home. I see where there is a place for moms to be placed while they're going through their pregnancy, and where we can encourage them and teach them along the way and prepare them and let them know how strong they are, how powerful they are as a woman, and how much they are capable of. The world wants us to think that we're weak and we can't do it. You can't go to college. None of that is true. We are so capable. And one of the questions that I read was, I think, what was one impactful moment for me for Let Them Live?
Yes.
And I have to tell you, I was coming home from a run and it was super early. It was a rough morning. Didn't get any sleep, was so weepy and teary eyed. And my phone rang. I pulled in my driveway. I did not know the number and I didn't want to answer it. I was just not having a good morning. And I didn't want to answer it. And I kept looking at it and looking at it. And I just felt this, just answer it, Sue. You don't know who that is. And I answered it. And it was a young girl on the other side, on the other end of the phone. And she thanked me for being a donor. And it was Diamond. And I just was a crying mess. And she thanked me for being a donor, and how Let Them Live was able to help her choose life for her and her baby. And that is why I'm a donor. And in this work, and especially like sidewalk counseling, pregnancy centers, we get to see the babies come back more. But I spent a lot of years on sidewalks, and we don't know the outcomes of those conversations with the moms. And so we don't get to see the fruit. And hearing Diamond, meeting Diamond, seeing her precious little Mila, there's nothing greater. And that is why I say to people too, if you have never donated to Let Them Live, you will never regret it. When you see the posts of those babies being born, you are a piece of God's work. You are a piece of saving these generations, and it never gets old. It never gets old.
I completely agree. And it just made me think of Diamond has become such a good friend of mine, like just through this work. And Mila, oh my gosh, she is
Oh,
the cutest thing. And
I
I have
know.
this memory. We grabbed lunch and we were all in the car, and Mila finds this like stick of like lipstick, lip gloss when she is wanting to do a makeover. So little 2-year old, I think, yeah, no, yeah, Mila's, or is Mila
Yes,
3 now? Oh my gosh.
yes,
Okay. So she's wanting to do, so she does my makeup and I have all this stuff all over my face. And it was just like the best day I'd had. And to think that that moment was in jeopardy of not happening at some point,
right.
that's what keeps me like fighting.
Yes, it does.
And, because of the One Life Ball, we had tons of Let Them Live babies there. And we were at our house, I think it was a couple or the day after the ball or a couple days after. And Stone and Kiari, who are now both 3 years old, they were just running
Wow.
around, chasing each other. I was chasing them around our tree, all these memories that are being made. And it was because of one simple act of saying, "Hey, it
Yes,
looks like you need help. We can help you." And the
yes,
reason that we're able to do that is because we have money in the bank, because we have donors. We didn't have that
right,
money, we wouldn't be able to say, "Hey, we've got you. You don't have to have this
right,
assistance." That's
right,
why I'm so grateful for you and for our donors, because we really couldn't do it. It's something we have to do
right.
together.
Yes,
Oh,
amen.
I'm so grateful.
Oh,
And I guess my question to you would be, what would you say to someone who is apathetic about abortion or supports abortion, given your story?
I'm in this situation a lot where this happens. One of the questions is, have they ever witnessed what an abortion looks like? That is one of the first questions I ask someone. If you are for abortion, I just want to know, have you ever witnessed to see what that looks like? And some cases they say yes, and many cases they say no. So if they have, I simply ask them, How would you feel? How do you find it that a human being, this is a human being, just has not reached full development of outside of the womb, but it is a human being. And why do you feel it's okay that this human being is given a death sentence because of timing in its mom's life or dad's life, or as they always say, the rape, which is a very small percentage. In that case, why should a baby take a death sentence for a father's crime? But we know that's a small percentage, but they always go to that. In reality, every day, that baby is dying because of timing in their mother's life. It's inconvenient. So, what makes it okay that poor baby, that little boy or that little girl who has a purpose, who is created by God and is not your body? It is not your body. Why should that baby be killed? I don't like to use the term abortion because I think it sugarcoats death. I think when you say that baby's being murdered, ripped apart, broken to pieces, burned by saline, or a pill is injected, the mother is not getting nutrition, that baby's being murdered. It is no different than a child who's been abused with malnutrition. It is going to die. It is being cut off the means to survive. And why is that okay? When I really do try to speak very calmly, because I have learned at sidewalk counseling, there is no hostility here because we are really trying to reach the hearts and educate people. Yeah. And it is tell me why you think that's okay. And I do get a lot of success at the end of these conversations because I think when you point it out step by step and truly what it means, people are listening to the outside world where it's accepted and it's okay because it isn't your body. It's your body. It's your choice because that's your life, but it really isn't your life. There is adoption. You may not be able to keep that baby, but you will always live with knowing you gave life instead of walking for 44 years knowing you murdered a baby. And your life is going to be a lot healthier giving that baby up for adoption if you can't keep it versus the mental health that comes along with your decision to kill. And that baby, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, that baby deserves the same rights as you and I. That's a whole podcast in itself. Yeah. But I really try to be as calmly and patient as I can and just simply ask them some really detailed questions as to why they think it's okay. Mm-hmm. And honestly, when people see an abortion video, they're mortified. They weep, right. Male and female. Like if they haven't witnessed that, it is the most gruesome, barbaric crime that can take place. I think when it's shown, I remember when the movie came out, Abby Johnson's movie, I bought so many copies and I used to just hand them out to people. I actually chased one man down. I have no idea what got into me this day, but there was this old man in a truck. This was while I was living in Connecticut. I was working on the Trump campaign and I was educating on pro-life. That was my thing. I did pro-life education for the voting season. This guy had all his Biden stickers and all that stuff on his truck. And I just felt I need to go talk to this man. I followed him for 5 miles and he finally pulled into a CVS and I pulled in. I said, I'm sorry, sir. I know you probably think I'm following you, and I am, not for anything bad. I have a question. I said, I just need to ask you a question. And he said, okay. He had his veteran hat on and everything. I thanked him for being a veteran. And I said, sir, I'm just curious why you support and vote the way you do. And he said, because I do. And so he didn't really have an answer. So I started asking him stuff just about taxes and just getting the topic going. But then I said, I have a question for you, sir. I said, so you support abortion? And he goes, no, I don't support abortion. I said, but you're voting for abortion. He goes, no, I'm not. And I said, if you vote Democrat, you're voting to support abortion. And they are the most extreme right now that we've ever seen. And I said, they are all for Planned Parenthood, sir. And he goes, no, no, Planned Parenthood's to help girls tests and all that female stuff. I said, no, sir, they survive off of abortion. And I said, it's that those other services would never keep their doors open. They survive, sir, by killing babies. And I said, and you're voting for it. So I love that you're not for killing babies, but I want to give you a movie. I said, would you? I said, do you have, what was it, the little tiny disc, whatever, Blu-ray? I said, what do you have at home? I had both. And so I gave him the little Blu-ray disc. And I said, sir, I just ask one thing from you. I said, would you please watch this movie? And when you're done watching it, I just want you to reevaluate how you vote in November. And he said, this was certainly not a conversation I thought I would be having today. This was very interesting. And I said, honestly, I said, I truly think God just told me to follow you. I would have no other reason to follow you.
I love
And
that.
I said, but I said, I just ask that you listen, you watch
Mhm,
this movie. It's life changing. And
mhm.
for people who don't understand what their vote supports, and
Right.
especially when you're not for it and your taxpayer money is funding these abortions. So I just think it's important that you would watch it. And he said he would. And I left it at that. Our conversations change things. And one of the differences with Let Them Live and some of the other organizations that I've been involved with, they all do great things and they have their purpose. Some are supporting the government in their bills and the legislation and all of that. Others are on college campuses doing amazing education to young men and women. And we need them. We need all of that. Let Them Live, however, as we've discussed, is walking alongside the parent, the mom and her baby, and getting them through life. And we'll never turn them away. That someone could call us in a year and need something, and you know that we're going to be there for them. But I think that's the difference when it comes to pro-life organizations. They all have a purpose, but they're different. So they're different, but we are right there walking beside them as God walks with us and leading the way. So
100%.
it's
And I'm
all
so
great.
grateful that you have the opportunity to share your story too, because it shows that abortion, it hurt you and it does hurt other women. And I hope that anyone listening to this can understand that we can do so much better for women than
Yeah,
just say, hey, have an abortion. And
that's
we
right.
women deserve so much better. And I'm so grateful that you came on and talked about your
Thank
story
you.
and shared just your passion. I think it's just infectious, and I'm just grateful to have you as a donor, as a friend, as a supporter. Again, thank you so much for coming on. If you guys want to learn more about Let Them Live, if you aren't a donor yet and you want to become a donor, you can go to
Yes.
letthemlive.org and you can become a monthly donor. You can donate to our weekly campaigns and fundraisers for moms, however works for you. But thank you guys
Mhm.
again for watching. And Sue, thank you again for being on.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you do. Give my best to Nathan
Will
and the team.
do. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
God bless you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Let Them Live podcast. I would like to give a special shout out to Patrick at Moon Shadow Studios, who does an amazing job of editing our podcast. If you're ever in the need for a podcast editor, he is definitely the one to go to. Let Them Live is a Christian nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are considering abortion primarily due to financial burden. 73% of women have abortions because of financial struggles, and we're here to help bridge that gap. Our goal is to provide the emotional and financial support these women need to feel empowered to choose life. If our cause resonates with you and you're interested in learning more, getting involved, or making a donation, please visit our website at www.letthemlive.org. One amazing way to contribute is by joining our Heartbeat Club, where you can become a monthly donor, and your ongoing support will ensure that we can continue helping women every single month. You can also follow us on social media to stay up to date with all the amazing stories and ways that you can be part of our mission. You can also find me on Instagram at Emily Burning. Thank you again for listening, and please join us for more upcoming inspiring stories and conversations.